Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of rapid-fire racing action as intense it comes in the one and only middle-of-the-pack racing league falling into LMP3 Championship for 2024. We're here today, of course, to continue the championship campaign and return from our mid-season break. It is time for round 5 of 8, and goodness me, what an occasion we have on display. Because last time out, of course, we were in France at the legendary Le Mans circuit to wrap up the Stage 1 Cup, and what a round of racing it was in our first endurance race round, or our first full feature race round. But as we make our way into the second half of the season, well, it is time for us to reset the clock, go back to our sprint races for 3 rounds, and we begin our journey today by making a bit more of an international tour and following a good portion of the World Endurance Championship calendar as we made our way to Brazil for the one and only Autódromo José Carlos Pace, or you always know and love it and refer to it typically as Interlagos, in reference to the neighbourhood of the Brazilian city of São Paulo, the capital city of the Brazilian state of São Paulo, and what a circuit it is. One of the classics when it comes to international motorsport. It has been a circuit that has been the scene of many a championship drama over the years. Many will of course recall the legendary 2008 Formula 1 Grand Prix, the season finale, where we had the infamous "Is That Glock" moment and Lewis Hamilton would go on to claim his first ever Formula 1 title. But it's also been the scene on a more domestic level of many a championship contenders campaign either lying in ruin or coming to full fruition in the likes of the Brazilian Stock Car Championship. But as our drivers get set and ready to go today, we welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side. And what does it mean when we say a post-round broadcast? Well, this broadcast is being brought to you live. However, the race itself is not live. The race had occurred earlier this week as of what was Wednesday the 9th of October 2024, but as of this Sunday the 13th of October, we're bringing it to you as if it were live. So I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens in the build-up to the race, of the practice session currently going on, the qualifying session that's shortly going to get underway, and the race itself. So it'll be as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. And if you are one of the drivers who happen to race in this round of the series, alternatively you happen to know the result, well, of course, we do ask that you prevent any spoilers in our respective broadcast chats. Speaking of which, you can be tuning in right now via one or two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, of course, we have the broadcast on YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, and we do say hello, of course, there to a number of you, including none other than Edwin Offrit or GT_Eddie, who says, let's get it. Indeed, Eddie, it's good to be back. Let's get it. And we've also got the broadcast available on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. And who is TX141? Here you ask. Well, allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator for this series. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we bring you all of your racing action. And speaking of our racing action for today, our schedule in times of British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, we've got one race on our schedule today with the qualifying session about to get underway, but the race is the important part, and it is our 40-minute sprint race to open up the second half of the season. And that's due to get underway in approximately 11 minutes time, or at 5:15 this afternoon. But as the circuit falls silent, let's give you a recap of the championship so far and what's still lying in wait. Of course, this series brought to you by our parody sponsor, the Dentistry Conference World Tour for 2024, and that of course being a reference to the fact that many an LMP3 driver has been associated with some major racing incidents on an international stage in real life motorsport. And what has to be said, normally the reference to dentist being a derogatory term in terms of that only dentists can afford to race these cars, the LMP3s, albeit not quite so necessarily, and therefore it's the dentist who cause all the accidents. But accidents or not, without accident, I can tell you one thing, we are making our way into the Stage 2 Cup. And the Stage 1 Cup opened up on the 4th of September, all that time ago. Goodness me, it's been a month and a half already, but we opened up at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Then we made our way to Spain for Motorland Aragon. And then in round number 3, we wrapped up our first 3 sprints of the season. We visit the Autodromo Internacional Enzo Edino Ferrari, or shortly known as Imola, for the 18th of September, and we made our way last time to France for the Le Mans circuit in our first feature race round of the season. We then made our way, of course, into the mid-season break, and we are back today after a week's break for the Stage 2 Cup, and it consists of 3 sprint race rounds, the first of which, round number 5, is at the Interlagos circuit. That's here and now. Then, next time out, in round number 6, we're making our way to the United States of America for the circuit of the Americas in the US state of Texas, the Austin-based circuit, going to see our drivers do the Texas two-step on the 16th of October, and our penultimate round, our final sprint race round of the season. We'll see our drivers make their way to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway, and what a circuit that is going to be, with the extended start-finish straight contradicting, of course, its fast-flying corner sequences on the 23rd of October, and we bring it all to a close by making our way back to the European continent, and we begin our journey on that feature race to wrap up the season at what will be the Portimao circuit, round number 8 of 8 on the 30th of October. So we've got plenty in store in the Stage 2 Cup, and what a cup it is going to be. But of course, going into this cup, it's only appropriate we retell the story of the championship so far, and let's take a look at those championship standings. And we begin with the overall Pro Drivers' Championship for this season. And as we can see, after 4 rounds, your Stage 1 Cup winner, James Logsdon, leads the way by 3 points over Jaden Calloway. And it really has been the battle this season so far of Mr. Consistent versus the rest of the field. Indeed, we're referring to James Logsdon with that title in the fact he has just been one step ahead of his rivals by his consistency versus the outright pace. And there have been some absolutely incredible moments from the likes of ITD's Jaden Calloway. The same for Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports in P3 on 158 points. David Adeyi, one of the dark horses on the grid. Keep your eyes out for him. He's always looking to battle for the win on 152 points in P4. Jordan Butler, the second member of DNA Motorsports, having a bit of misfortune compared to his teammate Tanner Dibble, but Butler's also there in P5. And then one of the big names to keep your eyes out for, Edwin Onofre, P6 down 138 points. However, he's had a bit of misfortune, but he's also picked up a win this season. And that, of course, being at the Imola circuit in round number 3. And could he spring some more surprises in the Stage 2 Cup? We'll have to wait and see. He's only 1 point ahead of Eric Nickens, and Eric has also proven to be, much like Edwin, a driver you cannot underestimate. And we have a sizable gap to likes of Julian Jones, Christian De Soto, and Kaya Moraes, who complete your top 10. But all 3 of those drivers there will be looking to score big in the second half of the season. Jason Landry as well on 70 points. He wasn't able to compete in the first couple of rounds, but he started to build some momentum. He's best of SP11, 16 points clear of John Lauzon, and it's Dominic Ford and Carl Ranieri who complete the Pro Championship standings. We then come to the Prime class, and as we can see here, the story is dictated by Shajee Zuhair on 135 points. However, in an interesting development at Le Mans, we saw Zuhair have one of his weakest performances of the season by a considerable margin. Is this the potential turning point for the Stage 1 Cup Pro-Am champion, or could that have just been a blip? Well, he'll be looking to prove it was a blip today, but we will find out. Garrett, Chavez and Wesley Griffith, meanwhile, both 12 points behind on 123 points apiece, and they're both looking to fight each other as much as chase down our championship leader, with Matthew Quinton in P4, and the 119-point driver that cannot be excluded from the title fight, nor could Tom Bryson 113. Mark Senegal sits in P6 as his initiation into the Prime class for this season continues to have its positives and also its areas for improvement, but he's still 4 points ahead of Justin Delano, with Justin Braggan, Matt Best and Jake Gertson completing the top 10. Jermaine Warren sits P11 best the rest ahead of Jacob Wally by 5 points, and it's Nick Bader and Aaron Lahr who complete the championship standings. And as we come onto the AM class, they may be our slower drivers, but let's not disrespect them and make sure they're not last but not least. And as we can see, Joseph Blamel leads the way on 122 points, 14 clear of Braden Mellin, and Blamel really has come into a world of his own after we did see Shajee Zuhair be promoted from the AM class to the Prime class going into round number 3. Well, Blamel has been the one to rise to the mantle, and he's not let go. However, keep your eyes out for Ethan Rolfe in P3. One of the big contenders for the Stage 1 Cup in the AM class. It all went wrong. It was pure heartbreak at Le Mans. Can he bounce back today? And he will want to, in order to make sure that Blamel and Melling are not able to break away. Meanwhile, S. Edward Irvin has moved quietly to P4 there, with his consistency rewarding him. 2 points clear of Glenn Bratton. Ryan Tigger in P6 with 67 points, 6 ahead of Alexander Frizzalone, and then we see Carl Peterson, Jesse Jamison Jr. and Roger Ganesh completing your top 10. Jason Seelin sits best to P11, only 2 points clear of Navru Kumar, and then we have Tim Chong, Todd Miller and Kurt Smith completing the championship standings. And then we come onto the Teams Championship, and well, it could not be closer. DNA Motorsports went into round number 4, leading the way. Coming out of it, they fall into second. ITD West have moved into the lead by 14 points over their rivals. However, Photon Clan are only at 40 points adrift, but they've got a 4-point gap to Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, and it could not be closer in terms of the two-way battles for those top 4 spots. However, it'd be rude of us to exclude ITD West JMT, who, whilst they've perhaps not had the fortunes they've wanted over the last couple of rounds, they're still there in P5, only 5 points off of P4, but they're only a point ahead of Team Bear Pope, and really right now it's a 4-way fight for third and the right to chase down down the top two. Outside of those drivers, we have Sunday GT Turtles in at P7 on 217 points, 3 clear of Kind of Fast Racing Team and quickly making the way up the ranks, with Vice Motorsports and Middle of the Pack Racing completing the top 10. Second Breakfast sit Best of SP11 ahead of Breakfast for Dinner, their sister outfit, and then Caboose Courier and Slipstream Sloths complete your team's championship standing. So that is the story after 4 rounds and what we go into today at Interlagos. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit. We race at the Grand Prix layout of the Autódromo José Carlos Pace, and as we mentioned previously, located in the Interlagos neighbourhood of what is the city of São Paulo, which is the capital city of the state of São Paulo in Brazil. And well, you all know and love and have seen this circuit map time and time again. But for the uninitiated, here's our circuit map that was provided to us by iRacing.com, and thank you to iRacing for that absolutely phenomenal simulator and the track maps that come with it. A circuit consistent of the best part of what is 15 corners, 12 major corners if you will. We've also got some kinks to iron out on the run to the start-finish straight. And this is a circuit that is full of elevation changes. It is full of sweeping corners. Our drivers wind and weave their way around the local hilly terrain. But what better way to articulate it than with a reference lab? And we're going to be bringing that reference lab from Jason Landry as we jump on board here from earlier in the season as he makes his way into turn number 1. Hard on the brakes he goes into the centre S's, making sure to stay right over to the left hand side as he exits turn 1 to open up turn 2, and as he smooths onto the throttle there now through the curvature side turn number 3 and flat out all the way down the retro past the straight he'll go. It's a bit of breathing room here, and before long he'll have to get set up for the braking zone for the next corner, of which into turn number 4 he'll brake at the 100 metre board or just after it, braking at about 80 metres there from apex, and off camera at turn number 4, smoothing the throttle back on, now coming through the flat out curvature at turn number 5 to make his way uphill. Into the double right-hander at turns 6 and 7, and you'll see as he makes his way up, a bit of off-camber there at the first apex, needs to keep it nice and tight in the middle of the road to bring himself back to the apex at turn 7, and lets the car spit itself out to the left-hand side before hard on the brakes, 100 meters from quarter apex, through the hairpin at turn number 8, downhill to turn 9, from second back to first immediately to clutch the car into the corner apex, and then make his way out of turn 9 in towards turn number 10. Here, the lowest speed corner on the circuit, the hairpin we can see plenty of battling, and as he makes his way out immediately over to the right-hand side now to open up Magulo corner at turn number 11, flat out all the way there on a low fuel car, and as he makes way to Juncal corner at turn number 12, hard on the brakes, you see the car coming loose there where he broke down to the second gear and the rear one's into snap round, and he controls it well and now flat out all the way to the start finish line. It is a rapid lap here at Interlagos, and indeed we've got one of the longest start finish straights of the calendar here today, excluding Fuji in round number 7, and we can see plenty of batting all the way up towards turn number 1, and thank you to Jason for that lap. In terms of our rules and regulations then, of course, well, setup-wise, our drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the Middle of the Pack Racing League, with fuel loads restricted to 50 litres. In general, our races shall start via a rolling start. This is the tradition of this series, and many a series at the Middle of the Pack Racing League, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. As for what is our grid order going into today, well, we can tell you that the grid order shall be set based on the closed qualifying session that's just played out beforehand. Indeed, that is just wrapping up currently, and each driver shall have one fast repair available, which they may use at any point during the race if they should need to, and a safety car shall not be deployed at any point during the race. Even if we have a major incident on lap number 1, we won't be seeing the safety car. That is reserved for our feature race rounds where applicable. Well, that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You're itching for the racing, and so are we. Well, as we head back to our circuit side pictures, let's see all the drivers making their way to the grid, and let's walk you through that grid, and it will be as follows. So taking pole position for round number 5 of the championship is Edwin Onofre, the privateer who is being lined up alongside on the front row by Eric Nickens for Photon Clang. And remember, we said covering the Pro Championship, keep your eyes out for these two. They are the dark horses of the Pro class, and they've locked out the front row together. Well, how about that? Jason Landry, meanwhile, the stellar Canadian, starts P3 for Sunday GT Turtles, and he's joined on the second row of the grid by Jaden Calloway for ITT West. Matthew Quinton takes Pro and Pole, the privateer, on the third row of the grid in P5, and the Briton is joined by the American Matt Best for second breakfast. A season best qualifying performance there for Matt Best, and we look forward to seeing what the 101 can do from the 6th slot on the grid. Karen Moraes, the Brazilian driver on his home soil, starts P7, the privateer, in the company of Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports, who starts P8, and your top 10 is completed by Shajee Zuhair for ITT West JMT, and Tom Bryce's teammate there, and I suspect they'll be looking to work together in the early stages to bring down Best and Quinton. And pole sitter, P11, best rest is Roger Ganesh for Sunday GT Turtles, and I do believe that is Roger Ganesh's first ever AM pole in the Middle of the Pack Racing League Series, and congratulations to the 229 driver on what is an achievement in its own right, and he's going to be in the company of ex-AM driver but teammate in the Pro-Am class, Mark Senegal, who starts P12. Behind them on the grid, starting P13, P14 will be Garrett Chavez for Kind of Fast Racing Team, and Julian Jones for ITT West JMT, with Joseph Linnell starting P15, or with his second place in the AM class for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, and he's got to worry and contend with Jesse Jemison Jr., who starts P16 for Photan Clan. We then have Jake Gertz of Vice Motorsports, who begins his race P17 today, with Jermaine Warren for company on the 9th row, the Griffith Middle of the Pack Racing League. And then we do have Wesley Griffith for Photan Clan and Braden Mellon for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, wrapping up your top 20. On your 11th row of the grid, it's Glenn Bratton and Aaron Lahr, the two privateers, who are followed up on row number 12 by Carl Peterson for Caboose Crew and Aaron Tiggert. And then we have behind them, as our drivers begin to get their way underway on the partial formation lap, we will have what is S. Edward Irving starting P25 in the company of none other than Jason C. Lynn, who starts P26, and behind the Team Bearpo driver of Irvin directly is Carl Ranieri, starts P27, no qualifying lap set. The same for Nick Bader there, P28, and Nick Yakov starts P29 and makes his debut for this season. He's been a regular in previous Middle of the Pack Racing League series, but he begins his championship campaign as of round number 5, and wish him all the best luck from the back of the grid in the 288. So 29 starters, it's an absolutely packed grid, and well, of course, one man will dictate the start of this race as he absolutely gets as close as possible to the automated safety car, Edwin Anovre there. He wants to go racing. He is itching to run away. He wants a repeat of Imola. He wants to make it another win. And well, of course, running that infamous red and black livery, not a Ferrari tribute at the time, as he was going to tell me, but he's running it once again, as I think he feels like he can bring some good luck. And well, I can tell you, the Ferrari Formula 1 team have gone strongly here in previous years, but will it be the day today for Edward Offred, or can Eric Nickens find a way to get under his skin? Meanwhile, in the Prime class, of course, Matt Betts versus Matthew Quinton, with Quinton the pole sitter starting on that inside line. And can Quinton perform some magic to keep the second breakfast driver behind, who is absolutely hungry for his first Prime win of the season, and indeed for some good fortune? Well, we are about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers all get set to get underway. And well, it will be to to Edward Offred to dictate the pace as they head to line. And without further ado, it's lights out, away we go, as an Offred immediately launches off the line as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, and everybody charges away to the braking zone here, and there's going to be 2-3 wider plenty. His best there, battles hard with Quinton, also with Dibble to try and get ahead. Further back, we've had a run off there for Braden Melling, who's brought it back onto the circuit. I believe Jake Gertz as well has had to tiptoe his way out around, being squashed the inside into the apex as our drivers make the way down the Retro Foster. Already plenty of battles as they make the way down in towards turn number 4. And we can see Mark Senegal here battling with Quinton at best, and also trying to keep Bryce behind us. Bryce looking to make a move, but it's not going to work out for Senegal there as he defended to the inside. Cold tyres, and the car lets go. A little tap to the rear of Bryce, but I think Bryce will get away with that one, as meanwhile Eric Nickens having a poor start compared to Onofre, and Onofre has nailed the start on lap 1 as they make the way through turns 6 and 7, and Eric Nickens right now under pressure from Jaden Calloway as they make the way to turn number 8, and I think the field will now begin to settle down. Further back, Jesse Jefferson Jr. having a good start, holding P12, albeit Roger Ganesh, who was close with him, and Jefferson Jr. has managed to launch his way a little bit further up, but Ganesh is up into P9, so Jefferson Jr. right now 9. He's got a bit of work cut out, and he's got some primes and pros in front of him if he wants to do battle with the AM leader. Joseph Blamel the same here, as Blamel is now starting to build up some momentum for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, but will that momentum come in time here, given the fact it's a long race, it's 40 minutes, but you want to put your best foot forward as soon as possible to start to put some pressure on, as they make the way out of Jinsdale corner. Meanwhile, on the rear of the picture, that is Glenn Bratton battling side by side with Carl Ranieri, with Ranieri going the long way round, and Bratton deciding not to fight it too hard there. I think a sensible call for the 289 driver and wanting to play it safe. But meanwhile, further back, we can see the long lollygaggle line of what is AM drivers here. Carl Peterson at the head of it, Esther de Worthing, Jason Lynn, and also Nick Yakubov right behind. And as they roar their way in towards turn at number 1, well, here comes a move from Lynn, I believe. In fact, that's not a move from Lynn. That is Lynn. He's gone up the inside there. Edward Irving out braking himself and locking up on the brakes. He loses 1, he loses 2, and Nick Yakubov sneaks on through with Lynn as well. So therefore, Irving having a poor run onto lap number 2, but still there's a long way to go, and he'll want to try and cool those tyres down as quickly as possible. That front right brake in particular, which is now going to be exposed to further thermal heating, and therefore that front right tyre could be at risk of some extended degradation. But meanwhile, a little bit further up the road, we can see a Braden Mellon battling with Shajee Zuhair and Jermaine Warren, and Zuhair having a dismal start to this race, really getting caught up in the lap 1 turn 1 concertina, and he's dropped all the way down to P16. The ITT West JMT driver has now got to try and fight his way through. He's lost 3 places in Prime class, and Jermaine Warren, conversely, has made 3 in the class respectively. So therefore, the middle of the pack racing driver really nailing the race start here today. But again, it's just the start of the race. You've got to get to the checker flag, and you've got to make it to the end of those 40+ minutes. Keep in mind, of course, the race is 40 minutes long, but then we do have the final lap of the race as Carl Ranieri battling there with Aaron Lahr, and Lahr making his way past him. Ranieri there running a little bit deep out Magulo corner because of the too wide on entry, and well, I think the 84 driver will be a little bit aggrieved that he's not had the perfect run, and that's actually going to stop his momentum to a degree. But after 2 laps of racing, it's Edward Offra who leads ahead of Eric Nickens P2, Jaden Calloway P3, Jason Landry P4, Tanner Dibble P5, prime leader Matthew Quinton at P6, Kyle Moraes at P7, and then we do have Matt Best P8 ahead of Roger Ganesh, who is your AM leader, currently in P9. And the Sunday GT Turtles driver's got Julian Jones, who's behind in P10, with Tom Bryce, best of the rest, P11. We're going to start from Roger Ganesh, and he'll be keeping his head down now and trying to push on. Meanwhile, change of place, as we can see there, Joseph Lamel has just found his way past Garrett Chavez, albeit Chavez trying to come back at him here, albeit tucking into the toe, and behind you see Shajee Zuhair and Jermaine Warren fighting. Warren on the right, your picture, Zuhair on the outside on the left. Zuhair looking for the cutback run, and it's going to be Warren who loses the rear of the car and loses the actual rear bodywork of the car with it. We meant just losing the control of the rear of the car. For goodness me, it all comes apart at once, and the 113 driver right now, we're wondering what on earth has happened there. I think there might have been a tap with another driver that escorted him round effectively after he lost it with his own volition initially. But what a frustrating place to be if you're Jermaine Warren after that brilliant race start. It's all gone backwards. We've also got Jake Gertson in the pit lane for repair work as I look at my cockpit window, and Warren's car right now proving to be absolutely horrendous to try and stop into turn number 8 there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Warren coming into the pits at the end of this lap, given the fact he's got a fully exposed Nissan engine in the back. Meanwhile, looking back up to the bottom end of what is the entrails of the top 10, or just outside of it, we can see Joseph Lamel here still trying to hold on as we look back for the rear of the P13 driver. And well, in this long extended battle with Jesse Jameson Jr. 8 tenths in front of him, but Garrett Chavez and Shajee Zuhair constantly knocking on his door and trying to find a way past him as they make the way through the kink of 15 and up towards turn number 1 they go once again. And Lamel this time will not need to go defensive into turn 1. He'll fill, albeit Chavez being 2 tenths back. You wouldn't be surprised if he looks for it. He tries to do it under braking. You'll notice there how Chavez initially under braking stayed behind Blamel, but then as he started to trail off the brake pedal, I think he was thinking about, can I look for a sneaky move up the inside? That's one thing you can do in these LMP3 machines, because remember they have no ABS, so therefore it's all driver modulated braking. You are the ABS system as the driver, and those who can master the art of trail braking in these cars, they can make some very late moves under braking. But you can tell there's no late moves there between Zuhair and Chavez. It's all fair and fun racing as they make the way up the hill. The Canadian driver defends the inside, but IT West JT wants to make the position count after Chavez getting caught up behind Blamel into turns 1 and 2. But as they make the way of Zuhair up the inside into turn 8, gets the door wide open, and that's Braden Melling who says, don't mind if I do. Oh, a bit of contact there, and that is going to send Melling round, and Chavez not too pleased. We see the Canadian driver make his way through. But I think Melling now have a word to say about that when they get out the cars later. He feels as though he had the move on and was turned around. Meanwhile, oh goodness me, and that's Cole Ranieri pointing in the wrong direction, and that's going into turn number 10. I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but the number 84 driver definitely finds himself onto the grass, brings it back together, but that car is heavily wounded, as there you can see Aaron Tiggott making his way up past, and Ranieri right now trying to settle back down. But speaking of settling down here, well, one driver will be hoping that he's able to settle down is Tanner Dibble, but he's not going to be given the opportunity to in P5 right now as he goes on to another lap of racing, and that is because he's got Matthew Quinton right behind, and Quinton right now trying to put some pressure on Dibble, who accidentally there goes a bit wide out of turn 2, and that's going to cost him a bit of overspeed in the run down towards turn 4. But I get the feeling that Quinton is not going to try and seize on that opportunity. If anything, I would say that Quinton is sitting behind and fuel saving right now, given the fact he won't want to fight with a pro driver, albeit it's a bit of a double-edged sword here, of course, because in this series, much like any middle of the pack racing league series, hold the fort there because we've got a bit of a battle in front. We'll come back to our observation shortly, as this is Jason Landry trying to go around the outside of Jaden Calloway, but Calloway says, no you don't, I'm staying here all the way through to turn 8. Brilliant battling under braking here into the first of the 2 hairpins. Landry outside to inside into turn 9, and this is a very hard position for the Calloway to fight. Given the off-camera nature at turn number 9, but he's still there. Landry gives him the space to come back, and Calloway proving you can go 2 wide all the way through the double hairpin sequence. And as they head into Magulo, well, right now, Calloway absolutely glued on to this position of P4, and it's going to be Jason Landry in the end. In fact, for P3 I should say, and it's going to be Jason Landry who's made to sit back in P4 right now, as meanwhile Tanner Dibble gets on the back of them as they come onto the start finish straight. And what a brilliant battle there. And Calloway right now, he's going to be working those right hand side tyres a lot more than he would like, but to be fair, for us as the audience, we absolutely love to see it. And as they make the way towards turn number 1 for the sixth time of asking, it's Landry back up the inside with Calloway on the outside to inside line. And Calloway knows with his constant direction change in the quarter sequences he can fight it, but this time it's Jason Landry who does get ahead coming through the Curva del Sol, and that is by a considerable margin. And look at the queue that's now built up with Dibble having to back off. Matthew Quinton looking around the outside. Dibble going defensive here, but if you're Quinton, do you fight it? And the answer is yes, you do. And Dibble loses out a little bit, albeit they can see Quinton running a bit wide, having to lift off the throttle to avoid running off the circuit, picking up an automated slowdown for his discretion. And as they come in towards turn 6 and 7, too wide they go now. They're trying to emulate what they've just seen in front of them from the two pro drivers, and it's going to be Quinton up the inside, Dibble on the outside. Now Dibble goes a bit deep under brake, and that's going to open up the door for Moraes to try and go for the move instead, but Dibble staying just ahead enough to prevent the Brazilian driver behind him from looking for a move into turn number 10. So Dibble right now finding himself in a bit of a misfortunate situation, but fantastic battling here inside the top 10. But let's not just say it's about the battle inside the top 10, as we've got even more happening outside the top 10 here, included some primes and AMs that have started to exchange places, as Nick Bader has recently made his way past Braden Manning. His next target in front of him, as you can see there in the camera shot, is Glenn Bratton, the P4 AM driver. And as we mentioned earlier, keep in mind, of course, that in this series, like any middle of the pack racing league series, you score primarily based on your overall finishing position, and that incentivizes the AMs, the primes, and the pros to all fight each other. But speaking of fights here into turn 1, Edwin Offred looks comfortable at the start, but right now he's not comfortable anymore, as he's got hot on his heels. Eric Nickens, as these two continue to fight over the lead, and they have put a 4-second gap of distance between themselves and Jaden Calloway. Oh my goodness there, and a bit of a love tap between the two of them. There's no love lost between the rivals, as Nickens saying, look, I want to go around the outside, and Nofre saying, well, you've got plenty of space, you don't need to crowd me anymore. And as they come through turn number 4, well, Nofre holding on right now, but Nickens, I think, really trying to get his toes out there to say to the number 99 driver, this lead you have, it's not going to last much longer. And well, if the race goes this distance, they're fighting this hard all the way through, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the rest of the field start to catch up to them later on in the race, given the fact that battling alone has taken what is 3 attempts out of the advantage they had over Jaden Calloway. But as they roll off a turn 9 in towards 10, you can see Onofre there a little bit perturbed on the exit, the car just rolling wide, and I think Onofre now getting his head down in the privateer machine and trying to break away a little bit further. And that is the awkward thing here at the Interlagos circuit as well, particularly in a race where you are going to have to make a pit stop. It's a longer race. Well, they know they've got to take on fuel in the pits, and a lot of drivers will want to do some fuel saving, but also this circuit can be very aggressive on the right hand side tyres in particular, and Onofre feeling that no doubt in turn number 9 there with the car running wide, and he'll want to try and protect those tyres. But when Nickens putting him under pressure, this might be where he starts to get a bit more pickup in the right hand side tyre, and that's where the tyre life could go against him, particularly in the last 10 minutes of the race, which is not what he'll want to feel when he gets into the car. Or not gets into the car, he's already in the car, but when he gets to those late stages and he gets the feedback from the car, which says it's just not got the grip anymore. But I have to wait and see as Onofre and Nickens now suspend their fighting, and the gap opens up to 6 tenths. So I think both of them there now cooling down and starting to play a little bit of high-speed chess. Meanwhile, further back, Matthew Quinton still chased after Jason Landry after getting ahead of Tanner Dibble. Will Landry regrouping to try and take the fight to Calloway, but if anything, it's Quinton right now who is starting to enact the pressure as they come through turns 4 and 5. And as we jump on board here with the 184 driver inside the car, we can see just following the lines of the pro at the moment, but Quinton definitely established himself comfortably as the Briton as being somebody who wants to be in this top 5 and even chasing the bottom step of the overall podium, and that is always a huge achievement for a driver in the prime class to take an overall podium. When it happens, it is something that gets them noticed very much so, and indeed they always want to be pushing higher and higher and chasing after the pros where they can. But as Quinton makes way into turn at number 10, Landry going a little bit deep there, and I think Landry at the moment just trying to smooth the braking out a little bit more, perhaps just letting the car roll under the retardation rather than being as aggressive on the brakes and trying to protect the car. But Quinton here just staying firmly in his wheel tracks, but he of course needs to worry about Tanner Dibble, who's not too far behind. as they make the way past us cameramen. Meanwhile, we look a little bit further back to Joseph Blamel, who's chasing after Shajee Zuhair. Zuhair recently finding his way into P12 ahead of Joseph Blamel. And Blamel, at the start of this race, may have had a bit of a difficult start, but he's made some progress. Now up into P13 and into P2 in the AM class. But hold the fault there, as we've had off track coming out of Junsell Corder for Jesse Jamison Jr. for Votan Clan, who qualified very well in the AM class, one of his best qualifying performances to date in this season. But running wide out of Junsell Corder has its own difficulties in the fact it's a downhill slope from the circuit surface, and therefore it means when you run wide, you're taking a little bit of an excursion, and you've got to be very careful of the outside barrier, which very quickly tapers into the circuit. But it looks like Jamison Jr. has been able to avoid the barrier in the 2-3-1 and has just been able to keep it on track in the end, albeit I would imagine right now he'll be trying to settle himself down and get himself back into the rhythm, and finding a rhythm in these cars in general has been key this season, but particularly at Interlagos, that rhythm would not go amiss. As he heads on down through turns 4 and 5, just up the road, Wesley Griffith battling here with Chavez. Chavez looking around the outside. It's turns 6 and 7. Side by side they go into the apex. How will they make the way on for it to 7, where it will be Griffith there holding on, albeit you see Chavez has got the overspeed, but the problem is on the outside line, ran a little bit wide, and Griffith in the end will hold on, but he'll be on the outside for turn 9, and Chavez has already shown how quickly he can snatch back at the car to come out of turn 8 into 9, and Garrett Chavez makes the move count, and now moves into what is P14 or P5 of the Prime class. But meanwhile, whilst that was going on, we've had some drama up the front of the field, with Eric Nickens with a mistake, and off track, I believe an off track at what was turn number 10 into 11, unless I'm very much mistaken, and the Votan Clan driver has dropped from P2 all the way down to P8. He's got Julian Jones right behind him, and Jones will be looking to go on the attack as soon as possible here to put some pressure on his fellow pro driver, and well, Nickens right now will know he's got to get himself back into the swing of things. He's got a long race to go. We're only 14 minutes into this 40-minute race, so therefore it's not over yet, but his task has been made ever more difficult. As meanwhile, the difficulty does not expire for Braden Melling here as he's under pressure with Glenn Bratton. Bratton looking up the inside, the side by side they go into turn 1. Melling will hold the place there as we've had a bit of smoke kick up there. That's tyre smoke or wheel spin, and that I believe it's with Garrett Chavez who got it broke over the set of S's. There you can see him in fact just getting himself back up to speed, but that is quite a slow going prime machine, and well, I wouldn't be surprised if right now he feels under a little bit of pressure coming into turn number 4, but I think he'll be safe here into the left-hander as they all make the way on through the double left, and up the rise they'll go very shortly. But Braden Melling find himself under pressure for that final spot on the AM podium, P16 overall, knowing that Glenn Bratton is not too far away, and I think would insist that it should come his way instead. But rolling off of the turn 7 and in towards turn 8, we look back towards the front of the field. Edward Offred running away, 3 seconds into the gap. The gap gradually coming down. On that last lap, the gap came down by 1.4 seconds, and Edwin Onofre really losing out. And a bit of clarity there from Jason Landry in the YouTube chat saying, unfortunately, a lap down car spun in front of the leaders, and Eric Nickens had to go off track to avoid. And we'll really appreciate that, Jason, filling us in there. And that explains why the gap for Onofre has been slashed quite considerably. And now Jaden Calloway, he'll see his rival off in the distance, and that will give him a little bit more motivation to hunt him down. And in fact, personal best that last lap from Calloway at 30.76 versus Onofre's 30.8, so gaining 400ths to nearest 100th. More pressure to be extracted. Meanwhile, speaking of pressure here, this is Tanner Dibble, who we ride on board the nose cone of as the DNA Motorsports driver goes onto the brakes into turn 4. Off camera, we can tell you that Garrett Chavez is into the pits for some repair work on the car after his incident only a lap ago. But Dibble in the chase after the leading prime driver. Guy Morais only 6 tenths back. So these drivers, they make the way in towards turn 6 and 7. And Dibble there gets very close. And you can see Tanner Dibble more confident with the apex approach there into turn 6. I think if he had clear track, he'd be able to carry about 3 to 4 miles an hour more through turn 6 and descent. But the problem is when you're in this train of cars, the dirty air coming off of each machine, and the fact you have the natural concertina effect whereby the driver in front has to brake, and so you have to brake slightly earlier, or you have to slow to match their pace, have a little bit less speed. Well, that is where Dibble is not able to carry the speed that he would like, and therefore finds himself put in this position whereby he can't progress, and he doesn't want to regress either as he goes a little bit deep there coming out of Jun South. You can see the front of the car just washing wide, and as a result, now not getting the exit he would like. And I think Dibble would love to clear the dirty air in front of him, and I think if he could do so, he may be able to close the gap to the top 2. But then again, that's nice to have, and he's got to deal with the hand he's been dealt, and that hand being he's got to fight his way past the prime leader just in front of their brilliant battle earlier on. But meanwhile, we look back to Nick Bader in the Privateer 1760. American driver making his way through Jinsal Corda. Chased after Glenn Bratton, gets a reasonable exit, and he will gradually pick up an overspeed here in the draft. Albeit the draft we have noticed this season, very pronounced when you get to within 3 tenths, you really start to gain. Meanwhile, from what is outside of 3 tenths, all the way up to 1.5 seconds, you gain very gradually on the extended straights, but perhaps not as you would potentially like. You really need to try and goad an error out of your rival to maximise the benefit of the draft. But Bader here just playing it one lap at a time as we make our way closer and closer towards the halfway point of this race. We have had 3 retirements so far, including Jesse Jemison Jr., Mark Senegal, and also Jet Gertson. There is work going down the pit lane for the middle of the pack racing car of Jermaine Warren, but I believe they may be having to retire the car soon, given it is 7 laps down from the race lead already. And well, they're losing a lot of times. Nick Yakubov currently the last of our runners, and of course making his way onto the grid today for this season. The Slipstream Sloths driver in the 288 in the AM class, having a difficult day so far. He's a lap down in P25, but to be fair, if he can get the car home, he'll get some good points on the board, and that's always a good starting point. And never give up and never quit until the car says you can't go any further. But speaking of a driver who right now would like his rivals not to go any further, this is Tom Bryce, ITT West JMT, who's got Shajee Zuhair right behind, and Zuhair in what is the sister team machine, absolutely putting him under a tremendous amount of pressure as we ride aboard and look back from the 152. This is for 3rd place in the Pro-Am class, and I wonder here whether they're thinking of swapping the drivers around. If Zuhair's the faster driver, he'll insist, or whether it's going to be all in and battle between the sister teams. Well, I think it's going to be a lat here, albeit Bryce on the inside line doesn't fight it perhaps as hard as he would like, but we've got a long distance to go in this race, and well, in doing so gives Zuhair the position, and I think Bryce would like to tuck into the toe now, save some fuel, and also make up some race time as they both now go to chase after Roger Ganesh, your leading AM driver in P10. But speaking of battles that are upcoming, this is Jaden Calloway for ITT West in the 37. The pro driver P2 overall and in class, with Jason Landry directly behind him, and Calloway leading the long train of himself, Landry, Quinton, Dibble and Mariah all the way through to P6. And it's worth noting, last lap, fastest lap of the race, set by Edward Offray, your race leader. Calloway 3 tenths slower, so the 30.47 set by Offray. So it seems though Edward Offray has found his rhythm once again and is just gradually pacing out the distance in this race, and that is a nice place to be when you're race leader. If you know you can set the fastest lap and you can just match the pace of your rivals and turn the wick down by 5%, it gives you a comfort barrier, and that means that Calloway, your main rival chasing after you, now has to, if he's running at 100% right now, he's now got to find a way to extract more than that 100%, and that is an uncomfortable place for the driver to go when you know you've got to be going even faster, as we see Carl Peterson there going slowly, respecting the blue flag as the AM driver who's a lap down in P24 and letting the leaders on through a great awareness from the AM driver of Peterson. But as the drivers make the way on a through for the 14th time, coming out of the centre S at the Cover del Sol, well, Calloway trying to break the toe a little bit, putting the car in the middle of the road, and that is not going to help him with regards to the amount of life he'll take out the right-hand side tyres coming out of the Cover del Sol. Whilst these cars have got a lot of downforce, of course, it will require him to use a little bit more steering angle there coming out of turn 3. You can understand why he doesn't want Landry to gain on these long stretches. Well, the problem is, all he's doing is taking some tyre life away, and Landry, I think, is saying right now, albeit in Morse code from the car, I wasn't asking when I'm coming for P2. And as I head in towards turn at number 8, we ride on board with the Canadian driver as he looks to try and fight his way through for Sunday GT Turtles. But then again, Calloway with a slow run off of turn number 9, and Landry, I think, right now thinking, where can I make this move happen? As that V8 absolutely roars to life. That 5.6 litre Nissan engine in these Ligia JSP at 320 machines. Oh, goodness me, has that definitive entry note and that whine. And as they make the way in towards Jinsal Corda, is it a good run for Landry? Yes, it is. Is it a good run there for Calloway? It is as well. So now Landry have to get it all done in the toe as they come through in the kicks and on towards turn number 1. They'll go. The gap 3.5 tenths when they started the run. Now it's down to 2.5 tenths. They're halfway along the straight already. And as they head in towards the Ascenda S, once again, will Landry risk it? No, he backs off there. You can hear it lifted off the throttle, saving fuel. And no, now is not the time to fight. And if he can save fuel, he may be able to leapfrog over Calloway in the pits. And he may, in fact, be able to save more fuel than Edwin Offray, your race leader. And could he, in doing so, perhaps narrow the gap to the race leader, with that gap currently standing at 4.3 seconds from Jason Landry's perspective? Well, it's not going to be too far away, because we know these fuel tanks go the best part of approximately what is 20 to 32 minutes in terms of the pit window, with the maximum point being the 32 minutes at which point you have to come in terms of being able to make it to the end unscathed in terms of fuel capacity. And as we look a little bit further back, this is Eric Nickens trying to battle his way past Matt Best, trying to battle his way past the second place prime driver, and Nickens close, but not close enough to think about moving to turn 6 and 7. Also with a compromised entry of Carl Peterson there lifting off on the run up towards turn number 6, albeit you can't blame Peterson. The fact he's doing very well to observe the race leaders making the way out of road. So Nickens there harrying it to hold back as much as he perhaps would have liked to look for the move, as they come on through the curvature of turn number 9 into 10. We'll stay in close, albeit as we look from then, here is a recovering Glenn Bratton, who's had a spin, as I'm hearing in my ear, from turn number 4, and the privateer in the 29. Turn 4 has caught out a number of drives. Indeed, we saw it for what was Jermaine Warren much earlier on, where he had a spin there, and will Glenn Bratton fall in victim and drop it from what was at the time P4 in the AM class all the way down to P19 overall at P6 in the AM class. Unfortunate for the 289 driver. Afterwards, what was looking to be one of his strongest performances of the season, and he was chasing down Braden Mellin for the third place spot on the AM podium. Meanwhile, off camera, we've had Shajee Zuhair recently make his way past Roger Ganesh to get into P10, and here is the ITT West JMT driver, who has continued to chase down the prime leaders, albeit the fastest lap of the race has just gone to the prime leader of Matthew Quinton at a 30.39. So the bar being raised for that fastest lap time and time again, albeit I would imagine these cars are getting lighter, and therefore they will naturally start to put in faster and faster laps. But you add to that as well the fact that a number of drivers will be in the toe of each other, and on the straights, that's where they really do gain the time. As there, a bit of a mistake from Best coming out of turn 4 into 5. He's going to put him side by side here in Nickens. He lets it go immediately. Matt Best has got his sights set on Quinton. He hasn't got his sights set on trying to beat every pro driver. And well, I think the second breakfast driver there being smart with his aspirations, because he knows now if he can follow Nickens along, given the gap is 5 seconds to climb in P6, well, if the two of them now can work hand in hand, they will be able to get themselves onto that lead pack at the best. Should Quinton start to be pushed down the running order, where it means that Best is only going to be rewarded for his patience by suddenly having the ability to do battle with Matthew Quinton for the prime lead right at the end of the race. But we are in the pit stop window now in terms of when we expect our drivers to consider putting some more fuel in the car. It's Best there considering everything in one moment in terms of did he run a bit wide at Juncal corner? The answer is yes, and well, I wouldn't be surprised if his whole race flashed before his eyes then, as the 101 driver brings it back together just in time, and that was a spun out Aaron Tiggott we saw on what was the exit of the corner, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. In fact, I think it might have been a spun round Nick Yakubov. Let me correct myself there. Aaron Tiggott's had a spin elsewhere on circuit as I'm to be involved, but Matt Best almost following suit, but not quite, and keeps it together for now. We're looking back up to P2 and the run of P2 through to P5 with Kyle Moraes now 2.2 seconds off of this battle. So I think he's had a bit of an error somewhere as Moraes. Alternatively, the pace of this lead pack is now just starting to drop him. But either way, you can see Calloway still keeping Landry at bay with Quinton and Dibble in the wings, all looking to fight. And this really is now a race of attrition, and nobody wants to put a foot wrong. And the pace these four are running is absolutely incredible in terms of consistency. Nobody making a notable error so far, albeit Edwin Offer 3.6 seconds up the road. He's looking to break away, albeit his last lap he was 0.3 of a second slower. But I think we are seeing these peaks and troughs in terms of lap times. Calloway runs a bit wide there at turn 2. You can see Landry immediately contemplating, do I look for it around the outside of Magulo corner at turn number 11? And the answer is no, because he'll want to do it on the exit of Junkow's. Calloway goes even deeper, but Landry with a little bit of wheel spin there. You could see the car as it just rolled off the apex and headed towards the exit curve. The rear started to cut loose, he had to straighten it up, and Landry not able to attack Calloway as a result. 3 attempts they make the way onto the pit lane entrance line, albeit nobody comes into the pits right now as they head into the braking zone here in the rear of the camera shot. You can see however Quinton under pressure and Dibble, but Dibble backs off, decides to fuel save, and now all 4 of these drivers started to think about that pit stop and thinking about the pressure they can put on beforehand, and have they done enough fuel savings to potentially undercut their rivals. But none of them will want to pit until the last possible moment, because they won't want to potentially risk coming out into the traffic of the field further down as more and more pit stops have started to play out. It really is now a game of poker between the quartet, as Nick Bader has had to be towed to the pit, and the same for Nick Yakubov. Both drivers have had to be towed to the pits due to an incident. I think they've seen them both come together at somewhere on the circuit, albeit that's happened off camera. Unfortunately, we can't get you a replay of that, but what we can do is take a quick look at Tom Bryce here as he chased after Joseph Blamel, albeit I think recently it's Blamel who's got ahead of Bryce, and now Blamel is into P12, and he's only 2 seconds away from Roger Ganesh, the AM leader. So Blamel is absolutely now on an attack as he heads up the rise in towards the double right at turn 6 and 7. There you can see Ganesh in the distance, and Blamel is trying to hound him down. And of course, for Roger Ganesh, it's about trying to hold on to take his first ever AM win and what would be his best ever overall performance in a middle of that Racing League series, a P11. But Blamel will want to try and upset the apple car, and you can see that Ganesh here really struggling at this lap. The gap has been halved, in fact, coming through turns 8 and 9. So I think Ganesh struggling with a little bit of tyre life here, and this could now really start to sway against him as he makes his way downhill through turn 11 in towards 12. New fastest lap of the race to Edwin Offre. Meanwhile, we're very quickly back in time to see the battle for P2 into turn 1, and Jason Landry attacking again here as they make the way through the centre S's for the 19th time. But coming on around on through the Curve del Sol, you can see Landry really nipping at the heels of Calloway, who keeps it in the middle of the road, and Calloway making a habit of this, really now having to make Landry play the game of which side do I go for, and in the end decides to hold the race in line, tries to go for the cutback run, but Calloway, you can just see how he has not got the rear grip in the car anymore, the car not wanting to respond, but he's able to defend to the inside here into turn 6, but will it be enough? Landry will look to go all the way around the outside, it's going to be brave from Landry, but Calloway there just balancing things nicely, but Landry goes for the cutback into turn 8, he wants the inside of the first hairpin, and Calloway now will look to try and defend on the inside into pin area corner at turn number 9. A small love tap between the Turman and Calloway on that tight inside line on the high apex curve as well. It sends Calloway slightly sideways, and in the end it will be Jason Landry who moves into P2, and some brilliant battling between the pair. Matthew Quinton sneaks on through, moves into the podium places now, and Calloway falls to P4 in an ITD West 37 that definitely is on a set of tyres that are not in a happy spot. And as they make the way out to turn 12, what a battle, and I don't think it's over yet, or is it? We'll have to wait and find out. As meanwhile, whilst that was playing out, we have had Roger Ganesh lose the lead of the AM class to Braden Mellon. He's just lost P2 in the class to Jason Lynn, who snuck up the inside there as we saw into turn 6, and I think Ganesh is really struggling with the car at this point as he goes deep there into 9 after trying to come back at Lynn, and well, behind him is Nick Bader, who is a lap down, so Ganesh will have that comfort. Matt Best is into the pit lane as I look at my contact roof window. A lock up there, meanwhile, on our cameras for Jason Lynn on the front right brake into the turn 10 hairpin. So everyone really now started to feel the pressure here at Interlagos in terms of maintaining the car. As I look up the inside there for Nick Bader, really trying to get a message into Ganesh, which is, look, let me go on faster than you. I want to unlap myself. But of course, Roger Ganesh will be the one to dictate whether that happens, unless Bader can find a way to overtake him as rapidly as possible and then run off into the distance. Tom Bryce is also in, but as I try to make the way on to another lap, and we're nearing the end of the first 3 quarters of this race, well, we've still got quite a sizable portion of the field that's yet to make a pit stop, and in particular all of our top 10 have yet to pit, and we've got a number of drivers outside the top 10, including Braden Mellon, your AM leader, P12, who is still waiting on the pits, as Matt Best has made his way out of the pit lane into a lot of clear track, in fact, in P11, and that could benefit him quite nicely. Next car up the road is Wesley Griffith, 6 seconds up the road, behind him Braden Mellon, 4 seconds back. So Best now has got plenty of room to get the tyres back into the zone he'd like them to, because they lose a little bit of temperature in the pit lane, albeit he's only put a small amount of fuel in the car, and well, that 10-second stationary stop there will have been a nice breather. But meanwhile, here's a man who probably needed a breather. Into the pits he comes as Edwin Onofre. He comes in from the lead. Meanwhile, Jason Landry carries on out there to take the lead of the race, albeit on track it should be said, but perhaps not on strategy. It's also Tanner Dillon and Eric Nickens into the pit lane. So Landry, Quinton, Calloway and Moraes are going 1 lap longer at least. So will it be the game with the undercut here from Edwin Onofre, or could Jason Landry work some magic to get closer via the overcut, or what we just call staying out in the previous times? And as they make their way in towards turn number 4, well, we'll have to wait and see approximately 2 minutes from now, because I suspect Landry will be in at the end of this lap if the record of the fuel tanks is anything to go by from rounds 1 to 3 earlier on in the series. But as he comes in towards turn 6 and 7, there'll be a voice in his head right now saying to him, it's go time, Jason, it's go, 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 and know that he'll need to master this. Meanwhile, where has Onofre come out? He's come out in P5, he's come out on a completely clear track. He's put in a nice amount of fuel, albeit a stationary time in the pit lane of 8.4 seconds. So therefore I would imagine quite a bit of fuel saving has gone in for the number 99 over the course of that stint, despite the pressure he had earlier on from Eric Nickens. Meanwhile, speaking of a bit of pressure, this is Braden Mellin, who stayed out in the lead of the M class. Shajee Zuhair has just come out the pit lane in P3 in the prime class, and Zuhair falling in behind. This is not convenient at all for the ITD West driver, in the fact that right now he's got a driver in front of him who is off strategy, and therefore he's got to try and find a way past as quickly as possible, because this will cost him time to the likes of Matthew Quinton and Best. In fact, Best is only 5 seconds up the road, and Zuhair's pace in what is the late stages of the first stint has been much stronger. Mellin there decides to get out of the way. In the end, Zuhair goes around the outside to turn 10 after the exit at 9. But meanwhile, let's come back to your race leader as he was coming into the pit, albeit will he be your leader coming onto his second stint with a top 4 into the pit lane now. Landry, Calloway, Quinton and Rise all in. We look to the blimp camera and they're nowhere to be seen. In fact, we look back to Landry. There he is, and Edwin Offre has re-inherited the lead of this race. Landry returns to P2, and well, there is a surprise for you in the fact that Matthew Quinton is going to fall down to P4 with Jaden Calloway getting back ahead of him in a shorter stop. So Quinton loses the overall podium position, and he's got Kymarize immediately behind him, as he has also got their Tanner Dibble. It's going to be a three-way battle. Quinton backs out of it in the end. He lets them go. I think Matthew Quinton at this point deciding, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm still going to take the prime win. I'm still going to take a huge bounty of points, and I'll let you guys fight over the scraps of the top 5 instead. As Quinton falls back to P6, Kymarize now up into P5 with a brilliant bit of strategy, if you will, in order to move his way up the order. And then we have Tanner Dibble in P4. And Will Tanner Dibble right now in the 00 car for DNA Motorsports, looking to try and hold off a fast charging home turf driver of West Kymarize as he looks to try and hunt after that final spot on the pro and overall podium. But with only 8 minutes left on the clock, if that, with that, it will be less than that. It's 7 minutes plus that final lap. Will it be enough for Moraes to try and get onto at P3? Because once he gets past Dibble, if he could do so, he's then got Jaden Calloway, and there is no way Calloway is rolling out of the way, given how hard we saw him fight with Jason Landry earlier on, if there's anything he can do about it. But as the drivers make the way towards the end of this lap, one thing that is very telling is that Jason Landry, there you can see with everyone off air going through our camera shot initially, and off air has reopened the gap to 4 seconds. Landry, in turn, through strategy, has opened the gap up to 3 seconds. And it's now Jaden Calloway who leads the lead battle back from P3 through to P6, and he has got all the pressure on him. And we're going to stay with this lead battle for the time being, given the fact most of the battling further down the field has now stagnated for a period of time, albeit we are keeping our eyes on the Wesley Griffith Roger Ganesh battle that is coming in. In fact, hold up a second, Roger Ganesh has returned to the AM lead. He's been in the pits already. The Sunday GT Turtles driver, well, goodness me, and there we thought, given how slowly he was going only a few laps ago, that he'd lost the AM lead in terms of strategy and on track. But there's a surprise. Roger Ganesh absolutely has confounded us here in the commentary booth and moved back into lead the AM class with only what is approximately 5 minutes to go. The Sunday GT Turtles driver could potentially be, of course, to take what would be his first ever AM victory. P12, he's got Wesley Griffith behind, but the danger man is this man, Joseph Blamel, who has put in significantly more fuel. In fact, his stationary stop for Joseph Blamel was double that of the average of most other pit stop times. I wouldn't be surprised if he's had to put on some tyres on that car for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, because that is an incredibly long stop. Either that or no fuel saving has gone in. He's been absolutely burning all the way through, and well, that would explain why he's been able to carve his way up the order as quickly as he has done so. But of course, now he's only got one driver between himself and victory. That is Ganesh. And Ganesh, if he can do anything about it, is going to try and keep that gap open as long as possible. Meanwhile, new fastest lap of the race, Matthew Quinton, P6, a 30.199. Well, that triple toe in front of him is helping out, but there's no doubt about it. Matthew Quinton showing race leading pace out there as he comes on through at the Cover del Sol once again, and we're riding behind this long line of cars as we jump on board with the Briton in the 184. But the problem he's got here is the fact he takes a quick sneak peek there versus Kymarize, and that is for two purposes. The first purpose is to say to his rival in front, look, I'm still here, I haven't disappeared, but it's also to get him out of the dirty air in order to bleed a little bit of speed and just settle the front end of the car down as much as he can, where he makes way back into the race line and hits that braking zone as he comes on through turns 6 and 7. He knows he's now got to follow the leader all the way through the middle sector of the lap, with Tanner Dibble still over the back of Jaden Calloway. You can see there off in the distance, and well, at any moment this battle could really come to life, given the fact they're running so close together right now. As meanwhile, off camera, there's been a major incident for Carl Ranieri that has seen him have to be towed to the pit. Very unfortunate there for the privateer as they come down for turn number 11 in towards 12. We're absolutely affixed to this battle for the final podium spot overall as they come out to Cal corner. You can see that every driver wanted to step wide, trying to use as much of the runoff curbing as possible in order to maximise their exit speed and their run onto the start-finish straight. But really playing that balancing act and that gamble, if you will, of pushing a bit too much versus the right amount. So they go too wide out there, they may find themselves off into the grass. But Calloway has to go defensive here as Dibble looks for his first side of battling, and Calloway in the end getting his elbows out as much as possible as they come on down into the S's. But as they roar the way through, and Eric Nickens now sets the fastest lap pace of 30.038. He's 10 seconds behind this. Well, it does seem as though, as we say hello there to Kai Marais in the YouTube chat, it says it's time, and I suspect right now Tanner Dibble has said it's time to battle, and Marais will be watching this and thinking, where do I get to become a player in this? Where can I become player free? As they roll the way out to turn number 5, where it's Calloway really struggling. Dibble's going to look around the outside here as they head in towards the braking zone for 6 and 7. Dibble decides to back out, playing the game of simply look for the cutback. He can't quite find it at the moment, but there you can see Dibble again squirming under braking, and Calloway staying absolutely solid as a rock as they come down through turn number 9. This is enabling Jason Landry to pull off into the distance, but Landry is not closing Edwin Offred despite setting a personal best of the previous lap. So I think Offred will have this one under control, and it really is the fight for P3 all the way through to P6. And Quinton right now at the back of this pack must be watching. He's got the ultimate popcorn spectator seat view, if you will, albeit he won't be driving the car with popcorn in his hands, I can promise you that, but he'll be watching this with eager eyes and intent and thinking, how can I potentially steal some places before this is all done? Well, as they come across the apex of turn number 14, they go on to what will likely be the penultimate lap of racing, with Edward Offred already across the start-finish line. There you can see Landry in the foreground of the camera shot for a brief moment. They will squeeze in another lap after this one, given the relative pace, but Calloway right now just holding on, and then he's got to do it one more time after this lap. And it's a horrible place to be as a driver when you're under so much pressure and you know you're not at the end. If Calloway's even thinking about laps, to be fair, and that's one of the things as well as a driver, you have to try and ignore how many laps remain. You have to stop looking at the clock and think, right, my job is to hold on to P3 all the way to the finish. But as he runs wide there, that's not going to be helpful. He may be at risk of an automated slowdown from the iRacing shooting system. He puts the car in the middle of the road. I don't think that slowdown has been awarded, so he'll get away with it once or twice, but carry too much speed out of turn 4, and it's a slowdown that can absolutely torpedo your run all the way up the hill. But as he comes through turn 8 in towards 9, Calloway still there, as meanwhile we ride aboard the nose of P5 driver in the ATA, the Brazilian, the privateer Kyle Marais, as he heads in towards turn number 10, and on home soil he would love to get a podium after his brilliant debut in the first half of the season. First time he's raced on the grid of the Middle Pack Racing League Series. He definitely has been one to watch as he comes out of Magulo and into the Jinsao corner. Well, into left out of turn 12 he goes. Can he get a better run this time? It's all equal between the drivers here. Nobody really gaining or losing. Meanwhile, we have to look here to a spin from what was at the time your second place AM driver. Oh, apologies, third place Andrew Braden Melly. He still will be third place, but that's going to put him a bit further on down the running order as he brings himself back up to speed. But meanwhile, onto the final lap we go. The white flag waves and Tanner Dibble looks to the inside. Calloway doesn't see it coming initially, but now we all too aware, goes defensive into turn 2. As they make the way down the hill and into the Curva del Sol, they go onto flat ground now, and Kai Marais is extremely close to the back of Dibble with the fight that's going on between P3 and P4. Marais says, can I do something about this now? But look at that, Calloway and Dibble holding the inside line. They bring it back through. Marais switches to the inside. It's a brilliant feint from the outside to the inside, and Kyle Marais takes P4, or does he? As there's a spin in front. Who's had the spin? We're trying to see that. I believe that's Jason Landry. Landry is spun from P2. It's all happening on the final lap as Kyle Marais tries to hold on to P3. Calloway's breaking away, but Marais himself in sight onto P3 now as he goes as defensive as possible into the turn 8 hairpin. Dibble looks around the outside. Quinton just watches on from behind. He doesn't want to become a player in this whatsoever And as they come through turn number 9, even more drama. Braden Millings into the pit lane. That is going to release S. Edward Irving into P3 into the AM class, and what could be his first ever AM podium of the season. And as they come through, well, a brilliant bit of work there from Kyle Rise, making me think back to none other than Nigel Mansell on what was Nelson Piquet all the way back at Silverstone many a year ago. But meanwhile, we had to look away from the fight there and look to the front of the field, because this man, despite early pressure being put on him, he's going to become a two-time winner for the season. Edwin Offred is your winner here at Interlagos by an absolutely unfathomable margin of 8 seconds in the end. The privateer taking the win, and Jaden Calloway holds on to P2. Kyle Rise will finish P3 there on home soil ahead of Tanner Dibble. Your prime winner will be P5 overall, Matthew Quinton, in an absolutely solid drive. Jason Landry brings home P6 ahead of Eric Nickens, with Matt Best in the end coming to line P2 in the prime class for a brilliantly deserved podium there for second breakfast. Shajee Zuhair fought hard and will take P3 in the prime class there for ITD West JMT, and then it will be Julian Jones who completes the top 10. We've got a bit of time to go before Tom Bryce gets to line, but there he is, best the rest, P11. And what can I see in the distance from Wesley Griffith, P12? Roger Ganesh has done it. He takes his first ever AM win in the Middle of the Pack Racing League Series. He's P13 for Sunday GT Turtles, and he's your AM winner by 6 seconds over Joseph Blamel for Eclipse Racing Esports by Skyline Designs, your runner-up in the AM class. Garrett Chavez will finish P15, and then it will be S. Edward Irving in his first ever AM podium of the season. He comes to the line. I don't think he's going to quite believe it. In fact, he keeps it close to the wall. He celebrates. He crosses the line for Team Bear Pope, and Jason Lynn and Braden Mellon go toe-to-toe at the line, but it will be P4 in the AM class of Jason Lynn P13 and Braden Mellon just behind him. When Glenn Bratton in the end P19, and your last finisher on what was the lead lap. Goodness me, ladies and gents, but what a race from start to finish. But on that final lap, everything turned up to 11, if you will, to quote the old Spinal Tap reference for those of you in the know. And, well, goodness me, we could not have asked for a more incredible start to what was the second half of the season. Those our drivers limp around the circuit. They're on fuel tanks that will be into their reserve portion now, if they've got any fuel left whatsoever. But as we see Joseph Lamel making his way on around, when he'll be a little bit disappointed not to have taken the AM win today. But to be fair, Roger Ganesh had it all on strategy. He had the fuel worked out, and Blamel threw everything at this one, but it wasn't enough. But it will still mean that he does take the AM Championship lead a little bit further going into round number 6. But as Jason Landry crawls into the pit lane there, I think he could do with a little bit of a push. I think that car's going to fall just slightly short as he makes his way uphill. Let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So after an absolutely sensational and scintillating 40 minutes of racing for round 5 of the Fall-ing into LMP3 Championship for 2024, hosted by the Middle of the Pack Racing League and sponsored by a parody sponsor, the Dentistry Conference World Tour. Round 5 here in Brazil saw Edwin Onofre make it 2 wins this season so far, the privateer, by 8 seconds over ITD West Jaden Calloway, with an absolutely staunch defence all the way to the finish. Kyle Rise finishes P3 on home soil there, the privateer, with a brilliant last-minute move for the third-place spot, what would be on the podium, head of Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports, who gave it everything to get past Calloway, but in the end he found himself falling behind Rise right at the finish. Matthew Quinton in an absolutely brilliant drive to the Pro and win, P5 overall, the privateer, and in the end 3 seconds clear almost of Jason Landry, with that late spin right at the end on the final laps in the Sunday GT Turtles drive demoted to P6, but he'll know today it just wasn't to be his way, and well, he'll still be chasing those podiums all the way to the season finish. Eric Nickens, P7 there for Photon Clan in a similar suit to Jason Landry, battling for the lead early on the race, but a mistake early on costing him, but a good recovery to P7. Matt Best, P8 there, your run-up in the Prime class for second breakfast with their best result of the season, and Shajee Zuhair finishing off the Prime podium there of Quinton, Best and himself for ITD West JMT in P9. P10 for Julian Jones for ITOS JMT, and completing the run was their best the rest P11 for the team of Tom Bryce, and congratulations to the trio there, picking up some good points for the team, no doubt about it, in the team's championship. Photon Clan's Wesley Griffith P12 there, in a bit of an up and down race, but in the end ended on a high, and Roger Ganesh bringing home his first ever AM victory for Sunday GT Turtles, and what a way to do it. All at loss before the pit stop, but what were we to know other than that he had mastered it on strategy there, P13. Joseph Blamel, run-up in the AM class there for Eclipse Racing, eSports by Skyline Designs, and credit where it's due, absolutely threw everything at this one, but it wasn't quite enough, but still a P2 in the AM class will keep him positive, and Garrett Chavez there rounds off your overall top 15 for Kinda Fast Racing team. S. Edward Irvin with his first AM podium of the season, my memory serves me correctly, for Team Bear Pope, a P16 finish, and he'll be ecstatic about that one and thinking about what's next. Jason Lynn and Braden Mellin scrapping just behind him for P17 and separated literally by thousands at the finish line. Then we saw the top 20 completed by Glenn Bratton, who was your last lead lap finisher, and a lap down the MP20, the privateer of Aaron Law. It was also a lap down for Aaron Tiggett and Cole Peterson in frustrating races for the pair. 5 laps down, and your last finisher of this race, Carl Ranieri. 5 laps down from the leader is where we cut the field off, of course, and Carl Ranieri, your last classified finisher. And then we had the non-finishers of Nick Yakubov, Nick Bader, Jesse Jameson Jr., Mark Senegal, Jermaine Warren, and unfortunately, last but not least, Jake Gertson. So 29 starters, and in the end, a grand total of 23 finishers, of which we did have 19 on the lead lap. And what a race, ladies and gents. For goodness me, we could not have asked for a better race at Interlagos. Interlagos always produces last lap drama. There's no doubt about it, whether it's on the simulator or in real life. It just has that tendency to inject last lap drama into a race, and we got plenty of that today. And that really has set the tempo for what is the remaining 3 rounds of the season. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, or the MPRL, in terms of how you can be on the grid for a future series, or just wanting to get to know the guys and girls who make up the community and run the organisation, well, firstly, we do recommend you join the official MPRL Discord, invite link available on screen there, as you will not find a more friendly and welcoming North American-based sim racing community than the Middle of the Pack Racing League. And whether you're based in the North American region or further abroad, everybody is welcome on the grid at the MPRL. But if you don't want to go to Discord, perhaps you're a little bit shy or you're more of a social media person, we do recommend following the MPRL on Twitter at twitter.com/MOP Racing, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news regarding upcoming and ongoing series and everything else in between. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, it won't be long before we get back to even more racing now as we are into the Stage 2 Cup. And next time out on round number 6, our drivers will be making their way to the United States of America for their first and only visit to the US of A for this season, and the Circuit of the Americas will play host in the US state of Texas. And whilst normally we would bring you the broadcast on a Saturday, we will be shifting the broadcast presentation to Monday, the 21st of October 2024. We are making a slight shift to our schedule there. And if you'll excuse me for a little bit of self-promotion, if you will, just to explain why it won't be on the weekend, I, as your host and commentator, will be at Donington Park in the UK, covering the season finale of Caterham's Racing over the course of the entirety of that weekend. So I'll be in the real-life commentary booth, but jumping back into the simulated commentary booth to continue the story for round 6 of the championship on that Monday. So save the date, and that broadcast will be getting underway at what will be 8 o'clock in the evening, British summertime or UTC +1, and we will see you then. But until next time, we have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your weekend. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.